Welcome to the show, guys. Waiver Wire Week 10. I can't believe I'm saying this, Jim. We're 10 weeks in, man. This is wild.
I think we say that every week.
Oh, but 10 really hits you. It's like 10 weeks. Like, when did that go by? And again, we are saying it every week, but it's just flying by now, man. It really is.
Hey, man, Christmas is only like 7 weeks away. I mean, come on.
Yeah, we're almost there, man. It's been wild. It's been a wild ride for sure. Today we're going to talk about some waiver wire picks at every position, kind of do a recap as well, kind of the studs and sucks of every single position here, including, quarterback, which CJ Stroud crushed it. And I want to talk, before we get into that though, make sure you guys subscribe, thumbs up, and head on over to manscaped.com. Where's my Manscaped stuff here? This is the body buffer here, and they've got the brand new Lawnmower 5.0 body groomer, guys. Go treat yourself to anything on the site, and the code you want to use, guys, is ShowerLine20. Go treat yourself, guys, to anything on the site. I recommend the Lawnmower 5.0. They've got body groomers. They've got underwear. They've got amazing products, guys. Manscaped.com. ShowerLine20 is the code you want to use to save 20% on anything on the site. Get the Lawnmower 5.0. Amazing, guys. Groom your body, groom your balls with confidence, and don't get cut. All right, guys, let's do this. All right. So, all right. So again, I just got to talk before we get is Algier, man. Algier is destroying my team and everybody's team single-handedly. Like, Arthur Smith is like purposely, like, I think he came out with a video saying something about fantasy last week. Oh, what do you want me to do? Cater to your fantasy teams? I don't know what the exact quote is. He's purposely ruining fantasy teams. Algier had 12 attempts. Baijin had 11. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And Algier was running for negative yards. He had like -4 receiving, something like that early in the game.
Right. Yeah, he had both negative rushing yards and negative receiving yards at one point. Yes.
and he's still playing them. It's ludicrous. And then guess who gets the goal line work? It's not even Algier. It's the backup tight end, Geno Smith, trying to plug it in, and they got stuffed at the goal line. And I think that was the difference, because they got stuffed at the goal line multiple times using Algier and Geno Smith, and they ended up losing the game. Not because of that, but that later came back to haunt them, because they would have had those extra points on the board. So yes, finally it's catching up with them. You cannot bench your best player. Now, the Lions did this, okay? I understand the Lions doing it. Montgomery was performing not as good as Gibbs is when Gibbs gets going, but because the injury to Montgomery, Gibbs got going. He finally got the volume. That's what I'm saying. Baijin can never get going. He can never get momentum. It's not happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're only giving him like maybe 15 touches a week, which is just like a bare minimum when it comes to
10.
a running back. And yeah, I was kind of flabbergasted at how much he wasn't playing. Bijan wasn't playing, and I think Arthur Smith, like Bill Belichick, you can't trust him for fantasy. You can't trust him as a coach for your fantasy team. And, it's disappointing to see that from Bijan. He's just has these lackluster weeks. I mean, what did he get this week? Like 6 or 7 points or something?
Only 11 rushes. 11 rushes compared to Algier's 12. I mean, and again, nothing. I mean, 4 what do you get? 2 receptions, and then they gave 2 receptions to Algier. He's not even a receiving back, Algier. I don't know. -9 yards receiving for Algier and 2 receptions. Like, it just pisses me off. And again, I think Falcons, I know Falcons, because I'm in some Falcons Facebook groups and stuff. I watch and I monitor what teams talk about. They're pissed, man. Like, Arthur Smith is drowning this team. It's single-handedly. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's trying to tank for a good quarterback. That might be part of the explanation here. But I don't know. I mean, there's going to be some good quarterbacks in the draft next year. That's all I know. And so maybe this is part of the strategy. You've got this elite wide receiver 1, you got this elite tight end 1, you got this elite RB 1, but you don't want them to get hurt.
No.
And so he's using them all minimally and hoping to get that elite quarterback to kind of complete the package. I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't know what's going on there.
Anyway, there's more crazy stuff, and it's not just 16 rounds issues. Again, overall doing really well, but that really pisses me off. Jonathan Taylor had a good week. Tank Dell goes off. That's another thing. Nobody was talking about Tank Dell, and that's another thing we want to take credit for completely is Tank Dell. I mean, he was ranked, 105th amongst wide receivers in the rankings. Absolutely going off. CJ Stroud going off. Good weeks.
Yeah, if you had those two stacked on your team, you got 70 fantasy points. That's pretty damn awesome.
It's just unbelievable.
I'm really excited for CJ Stroud next year. I mean, I think, this is one of those guys. This is like a Herbert, I mean, this level of production we're seeing out of him. And
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what they do in the offseason. It'd be great if they drafted an elite wide receiver one or brought in a free agent. I'd love to see that. Cause I think really his ceiling is extraordinarily high. He's done way better than anybody expected. And it's great to see. It's always nice to see new talent really perform in the league. So,
All right, let's get into this. Waiver wire week 10, quarterbacks to pick up. One more thing. Cam Akers, he's useless. Torn Achilles potentially. I wanted to mention that as well. What do
oh,
you,
I hadn't heard that. That's geez, great. What a great season for him.
he sucks. And it says potential. His fear to have suffered a torn Achilles is what I'm getting. I think that's the
and,
last report.
and didn't he suffer a torn Achilles before? I mean, isn't this like
Something
the
I don't know.
second one?
He's
I'm
useless.
not
He's
sure.
useless. I mean, what a sad.
Yeah, I mean, you can't even do anything with him. Yeah, he's done. So,
Anyway, not to mention that as it doesn't matters anyway. I don't think as many people have them. But quarterbacks, who are we picking up? I mean, at this point, you start who you got. Who could you possibly pick up? Another thing, Jared Hall, he got the start. He came out, was rushing try to get a rushing touchdown, stopped at the goal line, fell back. It was a shoulder hit, and they pulled him out. They said it's concussion. BS, man. It's football. You got to be able to take hits.
yeah, that was a pretty serious hit. I mean, it was. I mean, it was to the shoulder, but it was like a direct hit with the helmet, and his neck did something weird. Also, I think
he walked off. He was fine. He looked fine. And again, if you keep pulling people out for this stuff, no one's going to play. And I don't know if you saw that other play where they called a unsportsmanlike conduct. I think it was the Bills versus the Bengals and Joe Burrow. The way he came down, just a normal tackle. The way he came down, they called it unnecessary roughness. It's just getting softer and softer, man. I don't like these calls.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I was like, I didn't know what the heck was going. Like they called like an unsportsmanlike conduct, roughing the passer, and it was just like
Yeah.
a regular tackle. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but how about Josh Dobbs? This dude, this journeyman who's been on 5 different teams in the past 2 seasons, comes into Minnesota, has to come in on an emergency basis, and wins that game.
Awesome. I
I
love him.
mean, that's very impressive. I'm like, I'm blown away by this guy because he was better than expected for Arizona when he was there, and then they traded him away. Yeah, I mean, he got almost 25 fantasy points this week, coming off the bench, first week on that team. You got to hand it to him. That's pretty outstanding.
101 passer rating, 2 touchdowns. So yeah, Dobbs looks good, man. I don't know what to tell you. And I'm glad he beat Arthur Smith. I was so happy about that, man. So happy. All right, so who are we
Yeah.
picking up at quarterback here? I mean, yes, Stroud had a good week. Prescott, Hurts, Dobbs. Who are we picking up at quarterback here?
Well, I gotta say, man, Josh Dobbs would be my number one pickup. I think that that other quarterback, I think he might miss a little bit of time, and Dobbs came out and performed, and in a clutch situation, won the game. I mean, come on, I can't see how they would bench him this next week. But we got some good. I mean, we do have some good names. Dobbs. He plays New Orleans at home next week, by the way. Baker Mayfield, who got 19 fantasy points this week. He plays Tennessee at home this in week 10. Deshaun Watson, who actually his ownership isn't that high. It's only like about 60%. So this is a guy you could pick up finally back from that shoulder injury. Looked really good this week. Got almost 19 fantasy points. He is at Baltimore, though. That's kind of a tough matchup.
Yeah.
Sam Howell of Washington, once again, this guy continues to perform. Washington's not that good a team, but he puts up the points. He's good for fantasy. 18.7 points. He's at Seattle, who I don't know what the heck happened to Seattle this week. That was 3 points. I like, this team is way better than 3 points. I don't get that, but they have a crappy quarterback. And then Tyler Heineke for Atlanta, 17.7 points. They are at Arizona next week, so that's a pretty good matchup. So I think all those guys are options. I would probably go for either Dobbs or Heineke if I was really needing a quarterback.
If you're desperate and you're in a 2 quarterback league, no one else. Tyson Bagent, man. But he did throw 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but he pulled up 15.8 fantasy points. But yeah, if you're really desperate, that's rough. If you guys,
and there are some big quarterbacks on bye this week. We got Mahomes, Tua, let's see, or Hurts, and well, then the Rams quarterback, whoever that would end up being. But still,
Most of the case.
those are three pretty huge quarterbacks that are out this next week for the Week 10 bye. So yeah, chances are you might need one. So
Brian
hopefully you already
Ripon,
have one on your bench,
or
but just in case, these are some
Brent
other names.
Brent Ripon or whatever. He sucks. And then again, a lot of people
Oh,
make excuses for Cooper Kupp. He's busting 3 weeks in a row. He hasn't achieved. Imagine drafting Cooper Kupp first round, which everyone told you. We told you to avoid him because he had a 1-year anomaly, which I mentioned. And then he misses the first couple, 3-4 games. I don't know, whatever he missed. Comes
yeah, he had the
back.
hamstring. Yeah.
Comes back, and the last 3 weeks under 7 points, all of those weeks. So I'm telling you, man, Cooper Kupp was always over. He was never a good wide receiver. He was never good. I think he had like 1,000-yard rushing season. He was inflated by the year where the NFL fixed the season, where they set him up to win because they had to pay for that new stadium. So they're like, let's build up the Rams. They built up, they brought in a veteran quarterback and Matt Stafford, beefed up the defense. And Cooper Kupp was just force fed that year. So, and then the past 2 years, I was like, let's draft Cooper Kupp round one. Let's draft 2 years in a row. He's busted now. And yes, injuries do count. So abysmal, man. I mean, just terrible. 3 weeks with under 7 points for your first round pick. Shame on that. Shame on you guys for drafting him. I mean, there's certain things you don't see. Like, again, I take ownership for Bijan. I really do. But the thing about it is this. I have never seen this scenario where a first round pick, your top 8 pick overall, okay, you invest high draft capital, is being benched. Not for just anybody, for a 5th round pick who's running negative yardage and for tight end 2s that are getting goal line work. I have never seen this, Jim. I've been playing fantasy football for over 12 years, consistently on hardcore wise, okay? Never seen your first round pick being benched for bottom feeders. It's ludicrous.
Yeah, I saw some tweet. Someone was like, "Why did you even draft Bijan? Why? What was
That.
the purpose of that? Why would you do that and then not use him? I don't get it. I don't understand."
Anyway, let's move on to running backs since we're talking about them. I mean, the running backs that crushed it. I mean, I can't believe this, but Rachaad White has been pretty decent, man.
He's getting all the volume. That's the thing. He's like a workhorse on a bad team, and he's getting all the volume.
Yeah.
And you can be effective when you get that. And Sean Tucker hasn't turned into anything, which is disappointing. I guess I think he's been injured this year. I think that's why they haven't been playing him, because he was inactive this week for some reason. I don't know how you're inactive when you haven't played at all.
Yeah,
but,
that's weird.
Whatever. But my top running back pickup this week, and this would be my top pickup overall, my number one waiver wire priority would be Keaton Mitchell of the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
Dude only had 9 touches and 1 target, but this dude turned it into 138 yards and a touchdown. So that is outstanding. I actually picked him up on a couple of my teams. He's been sitting on my bench for like a month, not doing anything. And then he just explodes this week. Great to see. And his ownership level right now in leagues is very, very low. So this guy is a guy that should be available in most leagues. And I would absolutely make him my number one priority to pick up this week, because he was outstanding.
9 attempts, 138 yards, 15.3 yards per carry. That's wild.
Yeah. Nice.
Good start.
So, and that was all part of that whole blowout situation with Seattle, but still, that's an impressive debut. I'm excited to see what this guy can do going forward. This is a great addition to your team if you can get him on there. So,
undrafted guy this year out of East Carolina, 5'8", 191 pounds. 21 years old out of East Carolina. I don't just completely out of nowhere. But again, they've had running backs there years to wow us. We're not wowed. I mean, Gus Bus, he's not going to be a solution. So when you got an opportunity to see something like this, maybe it's sustainable, maybe it's not, but something to monitor for sure. Again, Stevenson had a good week, surprisingly. 22.9 points. Ramondre Stevenson, and that's really predicated. He did get a touchdown. What else did he do? That's pretty much it, man. 4 receptions, 42 yards. But I'm surprised, Stevenson finally got some work.
Finally.
Uh, so yeah, anyone else they should be targeting at running back at this point? It's
Yeah, I mean, we got some names that they've been showing up week after week. It's because their ownership still is only at about maybe 50%. But Donta Foreman of Chicago, Chuba Hubbard of Carolina, Singletary of Houston, and Tyler Algier of the Atlanta Falcons. All these guys are getting over 15 opportunities a week. They all have, relatively good matchups this next week. We got Donta Foreman plays Carolina at home. Chuba Hubbard is at Chicago. Devin Singletary is Cincinnati at home. That's a little harder. And then Tyler Algier is at Arizona. And he's still going to get utilized. He's been getting utilized every week. But these are all guys that you should look to add as well if you can't get Keaton.
And Algier is one of those like durable, compact guys. Like he's a strong guy. He's not getting hurt. He's not like a Montgomery or anything like that who just has shown injuries over the past. I know we've only seen much of Algier. It was like 1 year prior to this, but he looks like one of those guys who's just not getting hurt. It's one of those things where, Smith has got to pull it out. Like he's just got to play by Jan. But again, he's hearing it now. He's finally starting to get the noise. I don't think he's even got a Twitter. How do you get a hold of Arthur Smith and tell him off? Because I'd like to know.
I'm sure. I hope that Bijan is making noise in the locker room about not.
I don't
getting
think he is.
touches.
I think he's just too nice of a guy to do that. I don't see him doing that. But I would love for him to make some noise.
Success in life is often predicated upon just asking for stuff. And I think he just needs to go there and ask Arthur Smith for more work. He's like, dude, I'm bored here. I'm bored at work. Give me something else to do,
All right, moving on to wide receivers. Tank Dell, CeeDee Lamb, another good week. Noah Brown, believe it or not, out of Houston, but everybody did well on Houston. Everybody feasted minus the running backs. Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson, A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, believe it or not, finally having a decent game with 19 points. Your boy Chris Olave, your man, 16.6 points. Those are pretty much your top 10. Dotson had a good game as well. And Odell Beckham, his first touchdown as a Raven. Man, that guy sucks so bad. Finally getting some work.
He's just past his prime, man. I mean, this is... He's clearly a past his prime player. He's not the guy that we knew in 2016, 2017, way back then. But, he still has some talent and he can still showcase it, and he got the touchdown and good for him. But he's not a guy that you're going to want. I mean, he's on my list today because he did get 7 targets. I don't know what's going on with Flowers, but Flowers has kind of like moved into the background of this offense. Yeah. And I don't like that at all because he is definitely the best receiver. And the whole game I'm watching, and it was, it was Beckman and Bateman. Beckham and Bateman, all, the whole time, I'm like, why aren't they throwing it to Flowers? Flowers got like 2 catches or something like that. I want to see Flowers more involved. He's a more exciting player.
And look at this, man. Like Cooper Kupp, 6.8 points. We talked about it. Devontae Adams, 7.4. Again, another first-round pick wide receiver, crap in the bed. And even Jamar Chase, 8.1. So these are top receivers, first-round pick receivers, all crapping the bed when you need him the most, man. And everyone's just picking on me on Bijan. Oh, Bijan is not performing. You suck. You're a terrible analyst, Joe. You ruined my team. Dude, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase. Where's Jefferson? Where's Mike Williams? Everybody, remember, Jim, everyone was telling people draft Mike Williams round 5 ADP. Where's J.K. Dobbins? Where's Cam Akers, right?
Right.
Where are all these guys? It's not just our guy. Like, everyone's like, your guy, Bijan, this. But, dude, it's not our guy. Everybody has, like, the consensus picks are terrible. Terrible.
Yeah. I mean, there have been, like I said, in the first, 2 rounds, so many busts amongst these elite players. It's just very frustrating. But if you happen to avoid them, chances are your team's doing great. I mean, it's doing great. So it's just a matter of steering clear of the landmines. But Tank Dell, I was actually surprised to see, but he's only at about 60% ownership in most leagues. So this is a guy that might be sitting on your bench right now. And if he is, I'm sitting on the waiver wire. And if he is, dude, you got to pick this guy up. You got to get him on your team. He's been fantastic. What a great week for him. 11 targets this past week. Yeah. I'd love to see more of that, man. He's a very exciting player. So, we also mentioned, what's that?
Other wide receivers to pick up off waiver.
Yeah. Jahan Dotson, again, another 8 targets. He's at Seattle next week, so that's pretty good. let's see here. We got Juju Smith-Schuster finally made it onto the list here. 7 targets this past week, as well as Demario Douglas. Both those guys got 7 targets from New England. They are playing Indianapolis at home next week. OBJ, Baltimore got 7 targets, playing Cleveland at home. Jackson Smith and Jigba, another rookie who is apparently been widely dropped across the league because he's widely available. 7 targets as well for him. They are playing Washington at home. And then also Darius Slayton of the New York Giants got 7 targets, but they are at Dallas, and I hate the Giants, and they're terrible, so don't pick him up.
Bit of a reach here, but Jalen Tolbert, 5 targets, 3 receptions, and he's very touchdown dependent. So like Jim says, you want to have at least, 6, 7, 8 targets. 5 targets and a touchdown prove that it's a low volume inflation based on one
Yeah,
touch.
you can't trust that on a week-to-week basis. That guy could just as easily disappear and do absolutely nothing with only 5 targets. 7's kind of like my minimum threshold when it comes to wide receivers for being able to play them, actually put them in like to your flex.
All right. How about tight end here, man? Anybody here that Jawan Johnson's the guy that kind of jumps out at me here. I know he had 5 targets, again, touchdown dependent, but I don't know if that's sustainable. Anybody else here? And what do you think of Jawan Johnson, who finished 9th, including Sunday games only?
Yeah, he got the touchdown, and I would not be willing to start him. And I'm not really interested in waiver. Actually, that's one thing I meant to mention this past week was, obviously Sam Laporta was out.
Yeah.
And so I had to put in like my backup tight end, and I decided to start Cade Otton yesterday in all my leagues that I had Cade Otton. And
Nice.
I've been hot and cold on Cade Otton all season, because he's been good, but then he disappears and stuff. Well, man, he came through big yesterday. 9 targets, and he got like 2 touchdowns or something. He got over 20 fantasy points. Outstanding, man. I was very excited when that happened. And he is a guy, again, on the waiver wire that you should probably think about picking up. I think he's a great option. As is Dalton Schultz, who got 11 targets yesterday. So he's really coming along in the Houston offense. But again, every receiver in that offense feasted yesterday. So I'm not sure how much we can count on that. But he has been a significant part of that offense for the past month or so. So, he's been like one of the top 2 receivers on that team. So I would go ahead and absolutely take a chance if he's available, check and pick him up as well. Some other names, Hunter Henry finally did something, 7 targets, and Jonnu Smith of Atlanta, who is getting enough, 6. That's kind of like my minimum threshold for tight end, 6 targets, and they're playing Arizona next week. So that's a pretty good matchup. So that could be a good option as well, especially with Drake London dealing with an ankle injury, I think. So who knows if he's going to be back.
I think it was a groin or something.
Oh, you're right. Groin injury. Yeah. So,
all right. So let's move on to some defenses to stream for this week. Again, tight end, man, start your safe tight end. Hopefully Laporta comes back healthy next week, which he should. You're good to go. Defenses here. What are we looking at for best matchups?
It was a little thin this week for defenses, but there's 3 that I like. We've got Las Vegas, who the defense looked outstanding. Max Crosby was a terror yesterday, man. They are playing the New York Jets at home, so that should be pretty good. Atlanta is at Arizona. We've mentioned that several times, and I would only do that if Kyler isn't playing. There's a rumor that Kyler is going to start next week. Right. We'll see if it happens. If it doesn't, I would be totally fine starting Atlanta, but otherwise I'd stay away. And then Pittsburgh is playing Green Bay at home. And so I think that's another good option for fantasy points. So those are some waiver options for you if you're looking for those.
And we're going to go over this again on our preview show Thursday morning. So make sure you guys follow and watch for that. Subscribe. So, yeah, drop your waiver wire questions below. Try to get to as many as we can. Just a wild week, man. Yet again, top guys that should be performing, just not. And again, if you'd go prior to the season, we're like stash Tank Dell. Could you imagine like if the Sheeps had said, hey, let's fade Devontae Adams and make sure we get Tank Dell, right? Like they would have never thought that, but we were talking about that, right? Like what we say makes sense. Like they call us crazy in the preseason, but when the season starts, it makes sense, right? And then we don't hit them all. Like, guys like Deuce Vaughn, a stash, didn't get going. Who else? Sean Tucker. Didn't get going. Tank Bigsby. Certain stashes we recommend as stashes as your RB 4 or 5 with potential breakout, right? We don't pick all the rookies. There's a bunch of rookies I was not high on, right? and that we didn't mention. But there were ones that we were high on that went off: Laporta, Gibbs, Tank Dell, to name a few. So again, you can't get them all, but as long as you're forward thinking, thinking outside the box, and not just copying and pasting, you'll be light years ahead of the Kinshipsis. That's all we say.
Yeah, and where those guys like Deuce Vaughn and Sean Tucker were going, it didn't hurt your team at all. I mean,
Last pick.
they like 15th round picks. I mean, it's one of the last guys you're going to take in the draft. Who cares if they don't work out? But if you hit like Tank Dell hit, he's been a solid option this year, and that was a guy that was available 12th round or later for most of the draft season. So those are great when you can get an every week starter with one of those late picks after pick 10, 11. That's so good for your team. So helpful.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're aiming for the fences with those hits. So
Swing for the fence. That's what you got to do
yeah,
in fantasy. You can't play it safe like everybody else tells you to do. All
right.
right, guys, subscribe, thumbs up, drop your questions below, and we're out, Jim. Thanks. Week 10 is here, man.
Yeah. All right. Good luck at week 10, everybody. Let's keep winning, and time to get to the playoffs, man.
Yeah, almost there. We're out.